Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Arwin, Brian's Logic, Adam, Neil, 10th Man Rising, Righteous Force, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good morning, enthusiastic lot. Have we got a suggestion for a video that we're going to be covering today? I quite like the... Oh, we've already got one. Is this it? Round
Yes,
Earth?
we have The Priest. Round Earth by Neil deGrasse Tyson himself and the
I
surprise
can't
to
hear you.
follow.
Eli's decided he's going to be off mute while you're in the middle of a sentence, so we can just hear his background noise. Thank you, Eli. Do you want to try that again, 10th?
Yeah, Round Earth by Neil deGrasse Tyson himself and a surprise to follow.
So tell me, Neil, is the Earth flat?
Yes, it is. Elevation angle measurements prove it. Your globe model came from a flat Earth projection of an angle-based celestial sphere model. And I have a signed formula application to get you to your globe model. So your globe is a flat Earth.
We have video from space of the rotating spherical Earth. The Earth is round.
Thank you for joining us on this episode.
Is Star Talk the guy that we did last time? Is it the same channel, or is Star Talk Neil deGrasse Tyson's channel where he's invited this comedian guy on? Do you know what I'm talking about? This video is the same good-looking brother from last time.
Yeah. No, this is his YouTube channel, and the guy's always there with him. Like
Hold on, Ted. Go ahead, Eli.
the guy's.
I was just saying that's not even true. That's one of the things flat earthers want, is to see the Earth turning from space. I know that space doesn't exist. I know all that, but we don't have any videos of the Earth turning.
We would be happy if we had Earth-based Coriolis, and we wouldn't even need to go to space. We don't even have Earth-based Coriolis, let alone the violation of natural law that someone's in space taking a picture of Earth turning, which is just CGI. So let's just show it happening here.
I like Professor Dave's admission of what QE was doing last night. It kind of ended on that point where Dave admitted that it's the celestial sphere that's rotating above us. Good to know he knows the truth.
What is, there are people who think Earth is flat.
Right.
But recognize that the moon is round. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the sun are all spheres.
He's got a straw man up, so he's got a flat Earth pancake with the moon above it in the solar system, basically. So it's just their heliocentric world with sun at center and then all the planets moving out. But instead of being a globe Earth, it's got a pancake Earth in the middle. It's like, so we acknowledge that we've got round lights in the sky. I don't acknowledge that we're a pizza pie sandwiched between other planets with the sun at the center. None of us accept that. This is the basis of your heliocentric model. And number one, to get this alignment with sun at the center, you've got to take an R base value from a sphere Earth And to get that R-base value, you need to measure a flat plane and apply a Haversine formula to the celestial sphere model to develop your globe model, to then superimpose the R value from that globe model based on an angle measurement to Polaris onto Venus, so you can apply Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion and assume orbits. So this on screen now, is an angle-based measurement from a flat Earth transposed into a celestial sphere model, transposed onto a globe model to derive orbital mechanics from Kepler's third law, to then transpose it back onto a Peter Pi model within that heliocentric sphere Earth world. So this is beyond ludicrous, and we have debunked all of the aspects around the strawman pizza pie flat plane with a sphere globe missing from a heliocentric model. We've debunked the model itself because the model's based on R. You haven't got an R-based measurement for a assumed to be sphere called Venus. You haven't got an R measurement for an assumed to be sphere-based Earth. And the one you did have before we debunked it with the Black Swan was taken from flat Earth elevation angle measurements. So the Earth is assuredly flat. And the only possibility mathematically to assert that it's a sphere takes measurements from a flat plane. Anybody got anything to add?
Yeah, I remember early on, back in the day, someone would say, if you're a pool table and you had a billiard balls on you, would you consider yourself as, like a ball? So just that whole idea of him showing those pictures and giving either discs or circles or globes out there in the sky, which he says they are, then we must be that.
Yeah, if you're strolling through the forest, their assertion is, you look up at the sky and you see a load of what they claim are spheres. Right? No, they're dots, they're lights in the sky. Nevertheless, through their tracking of them over a period of time, they can assert they're looking like they're moving around each other, therefore in orbit, therefore spheres, therefore everything above you is a sphere, therefore we're on a sphere. Okay, so you're walking through the forest, and you look around above you, and there's trees everywhere. Trees as far as the eye can see, up, across, every direction. Are you a tree?
No, it is comical because rather than just giving the proof that we're on the globe, he stays on the fringes of the way they talk to people who, oh, okay, these people know, rather than saying, where's the radius value? Where's angle measurements? You need a flat baseline. They just stay away from that. That's why I have a surprise at the end for you. Go on.
But Earth is flat. That's not, something doesn't square.
Something doesn't jive, right?
Okay. Plus, in my latest book,
Sorry, what doesn't jive? Something doesn't jive. What, the elevation angle measurements required to give you your sphere assertion? That's what doesn't jive with your globe. Because when you just say, well, it just doesn't jive flat, and you've started off in the edit by saying you've got pictures of Earth from space, total lie. You haven't got pictures of Earth from space because space is a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, where all of the gas we're breathing at pressure could escape into, and would, by way of natural law. That's what gas does. So there's definitely no pictures from an area where gas is not filling, but rockets have been to take pictures. It's all nonsense. If he's going to assert Himawari, a complete nonsense CGI of an Earth claimed to be spinning from a sky vacuum that doesn't exist. I can debunk every aspect of every picture he ever claims to have come from space.
ooh, did I just plug my
Wait,
book?
your latest book is called
It's a crap. That's really all this is about, Tyson raking in the dough.
Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. What? We just happen to have a copy right here.
Yeah, I'll learn about your religion that you didn't even know you were in Neil deGrasse Tyson's new book. You've been duped and you didn't even know it.
No, it just happens to me. I swear we didn't plant the book. I have a
Yeah, you did. You got the book right there. You're there to rake in the money from your heliocentric lies that you've been trained to deceive people with. So, you know, you're going to get paid for deceiving people. You know better than some preacher claiming to perform miracles on a stage in front of thousands of Christians. You're just a charlatan.
an entire chapter titled On Being Round.
We're not. On being round, do you mention the fact that elevation angle measurements to Polaris give you your equatorial plane that is then converted into the sphere? On being round, do you include those elevation angle measurements in your book, Tyson? I bet you don't, because that would be a disclaimer that all of your globe claims required a flat Earth to make them.
And it's an exploration of how all the laws of physics and
Laws of physics, this should be good.
the accounting of energy as processes unfold in the universe, how that conspire to make things round.
So it favors
No, it didn't. Entropy law wouldn't conspire to make things round. That's far from anything to do with gravitational accretion, which is what he's alluding to. On the contrary, natural law defies your assertions of gravitational accretion forming planets. Because if there was, we wouldn't have gas expanding in all directions. But of course, in their world, when you look into the sky and colour in the images from Hubble, you can say that the gases are collapsing in on each other with gravity and forming stars and planets, in total defiance of the second law of thermodynamics. Which law? Did he name a law? Will he move on to Newton? Probably.
the sphere.
Favors a
Nathan?
sphere. Yeah.
Nathan,
Yes.
Nathan, he personified energy and said it conspired.
Reified. Yeah, his reification fallacy.
Yes.
Right.
And if something's not a sphere, it's a little bit flattened, you can ask what flattened it, and you find
Can you? What, like in the celestial sphere model? What flattened it? It had to be that way because you're taking elevation angle measurements from the baseline of the ground you're standing on. So that's how things are flat, if you really look at them. Obviously, that won't be in Neil deGrasse Tyson's book, and we'll get a limited audience because we're pointing it out.
out, oh, it's rotating real fast.
Right.
What's rotating? If we were, we'd have Coriolis drift, like balls drifting through goalposts, as you assert. But then the blimp film in the game would be drifting away at the rate that Earth's turning beneath it, shortening flight times when travelling west, Neil deGrasse Tyson. So no, definitely no spinning either.
So then it gets a little flattened because of that.
Right.
Right, why is this? Just a giant straw man about how you say Earth is flat, and then tell us how it isn't?
And so almost everything in the universe is either spheres or slight distortions of a sphere for some.
No, on the contrary. Your maps and models that are sphere-shaped have come from flat planes and elevation angles taken from them. So no, definitely not. Completely wrong.
Other thing that's happening to it. I mean, we can just see how the universe favors spheres.
So it's
Favours it? Well, why would you take measurements of angles from flat planes to develop the celestial sphere model and the equatorial plane you later claim to be the outside edge of a sphere at the quote-unquote equator? You know, it's favouring flat when you're measuring the thing that you say describes everything in the known universe when you base it on an R value for a sphere Earth that's been measured from a flat plane? No, definitely not, Tyson. We've just debunked everything you've just said in the last breath.
nature.
Right.
Basically,
Nature.
the universe.
Nature, what, like laws of nature? Like things expanding to fill volumes as opposed to coalescing with gravitational accretion to form planets? Nature would defy everything he's just said, mate. Laws of nature. Second law of thermodynamics specifically debunks everything he's just said.
In all fairness to the people who want a flat Earth.
Yes.
We don't want a flat Earth. We measure it, as do you, to get your globe. Have assigned conversions from a celestial sphere. That's a flat plane to get angles to Polaris to develop the equatorial plane. And that is where your globe came from. So no.
Let's be fair to those people.
Be fair to us, telling you that you need a flat Earth to get your globe. And no, don't patronise me when we are pointing out to you that this laughing chuckle monkey next to you with his book that he's punting won't be telling you that the globe came from a flat plane. And that is factually where it came from. Elevation angle measurements to Polaris give you your equatorial plane. And that is where you developed the globe from. So it's not a want or a need, it's a fact of life. Earth is flat.
In Columbus's day, there was surely a flat Earth contingent.
Contingent, he would be using elevation angle measurements to stars to navigate, though, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Columbus predates the era of experimental checking of any idea you might have.
So, experimental checking of ideas is an oxymoron because you don't experimentally validate ideas. You experimentally validate causes of natural phenomena. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, the wizard's just lied to you about what science is. Of course he has. Because he's not a scientist, he's a charlatan. You like those guys pushing people over and telling them that they're healed? That's what he is. A charlatan. No, I'm afraid not, Neil.
He also insulted every person prior to Columbus there, saying that they never checked anything. Just to validate his point that Columbus was right and we're right, the way to do it is to make that very strange claim that in the past nobody checked anything.
Say it again. I want to know if Neil deGrasse Tyson has validated how he navigated. Did he use the stars by any chance? Let's have a look at his process for getting around. If he's discovered all of the sphericity of Earth, let's see how he navigated it. We'll want to know that, Tyson. Obviously, it's quite integral, given that you're describing him navigating.
Not a lot of peer-reviewed studies back in the day.
Peer-reviewed? Go ahead, whoever that was.
It's just me, Brian. Yeah, just a small point. The first ever globe is from the same exact year as Columbus supposedly discovered the Americas.
Hey, John.
Hey, what's going on?
You're checking out Tyson. This video, I should really actually said that. We're on a channel called Star Talk. Let's be reasonable. Even though he's a lot bigger than I am, I will still share his video. Did we establish who Star Talk is? Is it the comedian or is it Tyson?
It's Tyson. It's Tyson's YouTube channel.
Okay.
And he has the comedian there with him all the time.
What's the comedian's name? So we're not calling the comedian or the handsome brother, because we should really give him a name. What's his name?
I'd have to.
We don't know the guy's name. Isn't this terrible? I'm sorry, mate. Anyway, Neil deGrasse Tyson demonstrates absurdity of flat Earth. Good video.
No, he left off on peer review. So say something there.
Yes, so peer review. No. Experimental validity is what we'd be looking for if we're talking about the physical nature of reality, because that's what physics is. In this realm, we're dealing with natural science, assuredly under the umbrella of physics, like all science, because we're dealing with the physical and natural world. So for this, we want experimental data. We don't want peer review. What, men in coats telling each other that they're right, highlighting each other's work so it can be published? Who cares?
Back in the day. Kind of just like.
Come again?
Just for your FYI, the other gentleman's name is Chuck Nice, the comedian.
Chuck Nice.
Yeah.
I like this guy. He's got a good name. Handsome fella. Shame he's talking to some wizard.
Just say whatever you felt.
Nice guy.
You know what? I believe that elephant poop will cure cancer.
There you
Why would you say that after I've just said I like you stupid idiot? Why? Why do you believe elephant poop cures cancer? I mean, if you think the cure of cancer is lack of elephant proof, you can put that through the method if you like.
go.
That's right. Wrote a paper about it. Like to read it? Here it is. And
Yeah, that's what our point is, though. You guys just write papers about stuff in space being spherical, and then expect us to just swallow it because it's been through quote-unquote peer review. Now here, where we're suppressed in a tiny little pond with absolutely no help from YouTube whatsoever, we point out that experimental validity is offered after you put things through the scientific method. That's the method to offer you the empiricism, not the men talking and highlighting each other's work so it can be published. But you're going to talk about how, what, you can just make stuff up, like cancer being cured by elephant poo, put it in a paper and publish it, and Bob's your uncle. Yeah, exactly our point. Yeah, that's what's going on with space, you stupid buffoon.
you're good, right?
Right. So it wasn't until Francis Bacon, Galileo, in the 1600s, where the idea that if you're going to say something and you think what you're saying is true.
No, it's irrelevant. This isn't science. It doesn't matter what men think in regards to their statements. Oh, I think this is true. Who cares? If you're going to offer any sort of empiricism, you need to be offering a scientific empiricism.
That's
Then,
what I think.
no matter how-
This is what I'm going to predict, but I think that's what he's about to kind of describe historically when he's mentioning Bacon. First of all, the Baconian method, which is the precursor of the philosophy for the scientific method. It's interesting he's going to go through that history and then cite fields that he works in that don't use that methodology.
So you're just saying he's about to literally grease the skids with the men who developed the scientific method to then move on to, of course, punt some pseudoscience that hasn't used it.
That's what I got a sniff of.
Okay, we'll see.
How obvious you think it is that it's true, you should still test it.
Gotcha.
There could be some.
But test your ideas, because that's what you've prefaced this with, Tyson. Test your idea? No, your supposition of cause when studying natural phenomena, right? That's what you're actually going to be doing if you're following the method of science.
something fooling you.
He also brought Galileo into it. Now, we all know what Galileo was famous for being an astronomer. So how could he test anything?
In one way or another. So if you want to say Earth is flat.
If you want to say it. No, we measure it that way. You've already mentioned somebody who's navigated the oceans. Now, they will have been using a sextant to do so.
Then, for example, lunar eclipses. What
about them? What about lunar eclipses? Are we going to now start begging the question of orbits? Because you've not moved on to the scientific method and how you're going to have some validity offered to things. If we're going to talk about this as a natural phenomenon, or we're going to put it through the methods that's been developed by the men you mentioned in passing to grease the skids of your pseudoscience, then we're going to be establishing the cause of the phenomenon known as an eclipse. That's what we'll be doing. Dependent variable eclipse. Okay? That's what we'll be doing if Tyson now details the methodology of science. We'll see.
It's a lunar eclipse. If your face is the brilliant sun.
Thank you.
And this is Earth.
Why are we presupposing orbital motion before we've done anything? So, as I said on yesterday's show, every single claim to be proof of a sphere will start by your assuming the sphere Earth. So here we are with a sphere Earth with an R value in an orbital motion. It's begged the question of Earth falling around the sun and begged the question of Earth in its sphericity in the first place. So we're automatically assuming everything that he needs to prove and justify as his claim at the starting point. The textbook definition of a begging the question fallacy from Neil deGrasse Tyson. So this is logically fallacious. Immediately we can ignore everything that follows this.
Mm-hmm. And the moon is over here.
What, orbiting? Because I just assumed it.
The sun is always casting Earth's shadow into...
What, when you assume orbital motion and assume that what you're about to experience is a shadow? So an eclipse is now a shadow? Says who? Why is it a shadow? How do you know that it behaves that way? When you assume that Earth's a sphere and when you assume it's in an orbital motion falling around the sun and you assume that the moon is in an orbital motion around the Earth and you assume that one blocks the other. One is occulting the other. No? How do I know it's a shadow? It turned red when I saw it. Definitely not a shadow, Tyson, by my own bloody eyes.
Space. It's always there no matter what.
Right.
Obviously. Okay.
Obviously, no, you've just begged the question. Stating obviously is your charlatan conman move of convincing the person you've just used fallacious logic that obviously my fallacious logic stands. No, you just beg the question of everything you need to validate. You need to validate Earth's a sphere, you need to Earth with a radius value for it to be a sphere, and you need the exact same radius value to assert all of the distances and sizes of said spheres that you've assumed the lights in the sky are, and you need to assume are for orbital motion. So every single aspect of this begging the question fallacy has been debunked here. Please share the show.
It's just a shadow.
It's a shadow.
It's a shadow. If I beg the question and tell you it's a shadow. No, it turned red. That's not how shadows behave, Dumbo. What kind of shadow have you seen that's turned red?
The moon
It's just
occasionally...
a shadow shining
Sorry? Oh, it's him.
on blackness.
Yeah, a shadow in darkness.
A shadow in
so,
just keep saying it. Just keep asserting the begging the question fallacy. The automatic assumption of your orbital motions causing shadows. Just keep saying it 3 or 4 times. So everyone's in no doubt that you're begging the question fallacy is correct.
So the moon occasionally passes through that shadow.
What, when you've assumed that it's in an orbital motion? It'll pass through because it's orbiting a sphere Earth with an orbital value assumed and an R value assumed and sphericity assumed? Definitely not.
And if you see the shape of...
Sorry, that's not what I saw when I saw an eclipse. That looks more like the phases of the moon. What I saw was it turn red.
Earth's shadow on the moon?
Why would we assume it's Earth's shadow? Go on.
There's no such thing. Sorry, there's no such thing as a lunar eclipse. Nothing gets eclipsed. There is no occultation. You can see all of the moon. As you said, it's just sometimes it's red. You know, there's no eclipse. Like you don't get to not see the moon.
Further to
happens to the sun.
If I was to assume that it was a shadow, as he's indicating by saying it 4 or 5 times to his co-host, then presumably it would move in the direction of the orbital motion. It didn't. It went completely the opposite direction. The line that traversed whatever the moon is didn't move in a way that occultation was occurring, because that would mean the moon would have a line moving up it, and it didn't. It had a line moving down it. So utter bollocks. Even if I assumed it's a shadow, it didn't behave that way.
That's right. It went from the top right-hand corner to the bottom left-hand corner.
That's what I saw.
And then from the bottom left-hand corner back out the top right-hand corner.
Hey, I got a shout out from Ben. Oh, I feel really flattered. Thank you, Ben. He sent me money as well. I really appreciate it. Go and subscribe today to Taboo Conspiracy Channel. He's awesome. He says, thank you. It's just wonderful show. Thank you for everything you do. Oh, you're a massive inspiration to us all, Ben. Hopefully you'll get lots of subscribers from the meager audience that YouTube allows me to have here. 87 people watching. Please share the show. Oh, also, shout out to Godzilla. Good timing. I was just about to turn off the chat. Neil deGrasse Tyson is so high. How high is he? One word, space. Thank you very much, both of you, for your super chats. Really do appreciate the support.
It is always round. Always round. If Earth were flat, sometimes you...
Here we go. Now we take the begging the question assumption of orbital motions, begging the question assumption of R values, begging the question of orbital motion imposed with an R value on Venus, assumed to be the same R value as Earth, and Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion, all assumed by Tyson with this mere diagram, has now got a penny on its side as a flat Earth. What? When I say it's a flat disk? To make this assertion, to substitute in the globe Earth, you need to measure elevation angle measurements off a flat Earth to develop this model. So what, taking it back to the plane that you bastardized into a sphere and saying, if I put a flat Earth in this nonsensical orbital model, it doesn't work? Why would we assume it's a shadow? Why would we assume we've got a penny in orbital motion? Why would you insert the prerequisite requirement for a flat plane to measure, not a disk in space, back into your stupid sphere model after you measured a flat plane? Why would you do any of this? This is utter strawman nonsense.
You get like a flat shadow.
Right.
Oh, would you? Why is it a shadow again? It went red. Did this line go red?
We've never seen a flat shadow.
Right.
No. Nobody's ever seen a flat shadow. What? I've seen plenty of flat shadows. They very rarely have three-dimensionality to them, actually.
Well, usually shadows are flat because it's a shadow on a flat surface.
Right,
That's
he's saying
usually
nothing
how
mean,
you
to be
see
fair.
shadows.
Let's not be mean to him.
In fact, it is a segment of a arc of a circle, no matter the orientation of the moon and the sun.
Orientation in your presupposed falling around a sphere Earth, heliocentric. That isn't what the case is, though. You've just begged the question of all of that. You've not validated any of it, and the assumptions required have all been debunked by us. Again, please share the show.
And the only thing that makes a perfectly circular shadow
What, a circle?
Be something that's perfectly circular.
perfectly spherical.
Spherical.
Yes.
What about going red? What does that? Is that a shadow when it goes red? You haven't explained what I observed. I mean, I'm just a mere man looking at a moon turning red and going, what the hell is that? Meaning everything about it. What is the moon? What's it doing? Why is it in the sky? Why is it turning red? Why did it go extremely cold when it turned red? None of those things describe shadows to me. Like, none of them.
So the only thing that makes a perfect circle shadow every single time
Not a shadow. You've assumed it's a shadow.
is a perfect sphere.
Right.
Okay? No
What, if it's occulting it? The light from the sun, that is. So if we're a sphere and we're between the moon and the sun, definitely not. The Seleninian eclipse would demonstrate that there's nothing that could be described as Earth as a sphere between those two celestial items. You can't describe them that way when they're both above the horizon. What's occulting what? Nothing, basically. So what do you guys call that? The impossible eclipse? No, very much a possibility when we're watching it happen. It's just impossible in your stupid model. Because you've got it occulting and causing shadows. Whereas when it starts turning red and the sun's still there, obviously it's not an occultation that's causing it to turn red. I mean, cause a shadow as you assume it. None of that's true. None of it represents anything that I've observed in this regard.
No matter what angle you shine.
Oh, it's him interrupting Neil again.
As a disk, it would only make a perfect circle if you lined it that way.
Right.
In a straw man heliocentric orbital motion that needed a flat Earth elevation angle measurement to derive in the first instance, and then reinserted into that heliocentric model after measuring the flat Earth elevation angle measurements from a flat plane and converting it from the celestial sphere model with its equatorial flat plane by way of Haversine into your globe to further advance your R value into a Venus with an R value that's assumed, and then Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion with a flat disk inserted thereafter. Utter horseshit. Yeah, notice how easy and succinct it was for me to pull apart that straw man in its entirety, as well as debunking every aspect of heliocentrism and proving a flat Earth. I didn't even need to take breath.
And then you have to look at the face of the disc in order to get the circle.
The circle. If any other angle, you get
something of another.
The Greeks knew this.
What's he talking about? Face of the disc. Is the moon now a disc for you? I mean, we don't see more than one side of it according to its disc assumption.
Right.
All the lunar eclipses they said, oh my gosh, we must be in a round Earth. This is
No, definitely not. What about when there's a Seleninian eclipse? Did anybody assume that there was a occultation occurring then? I mean, obviously you've got your excuses lined up. You just call it impossible. Definitely not affirming a heliocentric model or making me think that I've got a sphere Earth in between the moon and the sun when that happens. Because it isn't and couldn't possibly be.
thousands of years,
Before
2,000 years before Columbus. Exactly.
Right.
So now if the Earth is round, how big is Earth?
Why would we assume that Earth is round to then ask how big it is? Are you getting to begging the question of an R value that we've already covered multiple times before you've even got here? I suspect so.
You might want to check for that. There was a famous
You might want to measure the R value. Yeah, definitely. This should be interesting. Looked like there was a little cut there.
experiment conducted by Eratosthenes.
You think Eratosthenes performed an experiment, observed natural phenomena and assumed a cause of the effect to vary it and see if it caused it? Definitely not. Again, the wizard Tyson hijacking the terms of empirical science to grease the skids of his heliocentric bullshit.
Eratosthenes. And the two cities in the old world, and
he's about to prove a flat Earth, ladies and gentlemen. Roll your sleeves up. Tyson's about to prove Earth is flat.
One of them, they knew that at 12 noon on a particular day of the year, that the sun was directly overhead and you could see the bottom of a well.
Oh.
Okay, so with you so far, sun's above a well, pointing directly down it. Sounds good, I'm intrigued.
Okay.
You don't run around looking at the bottoms of wells.
No.
Do you not? Well, why have you just described doing exactly that?
Because the light doesn't
Nathan.
take...
Yes.
Yeah, that would be the geographical position, the GP of the sun at that moment, that second, when that happens.
Yes, that's right.
Zenith
That's the
position, 90 degrees.
Correct. 90 degrees. He hasn't mentioned any angles yet. So 90 degrees to the sun, directly above us, at our zenith. The GP of the sun is above the well. It's got a term, Tyson. Strange you wouldn't use it.
It's just... No.
Doesn't get down there.
Doesn't get down there.
Down there like a swooping motion forming an angle. Interesting.
How can we use this observation to see if Earth's surface is curved?
Got a flat surface so far. This is a flat surface.
We needed another well. Turns out we can't see.
Notice how both of these wells are on a flat plane.
See the bottom of both wells at the same time. What might explain this? Well, there are two possible explanations. First, we could have a flat Earth with the sun that's small and close by, so that...
Okay. So that would generate the exact same effect.
The light hits the second well at an angle.
An angle? Anybody hear him say that word? Angle?
Yeah.
So we're measuring angles then.
He's done.
Say again,
Sounds
John.
like Aristoteles method.
John was first.
Yeah, he's done at the moment he mentioned angle. He just pulled the ripcord on heliocentrism. I don't think he knows that.
He's about to prove a flat Earth.
He did know
For a
that
second.
because when he set his diagram up, he didn't draw a curved baseline because he wanted to get angles. Look.
Starting
he
point
knows.
for this assertion. Measuring angles. So what do we need for an angle? Well, we're going to need a baseline. It's part of the angle. So will that work on a curve? Nope.
Absolutely not.
So we need a flat Earth. So to do this, we need a flat Earth. Facts, ladies and gentlemen. Earth is flat. This Eratosthenes claimed to be proof of a sphere Earth that will assume the ground you've measured an angle from flat, actually bent, will prove a flat Earth.
Can I just point out something here, like a perfect equivalence? When the topic is gravity, right? They'll talk about how Einstein's theory of general relativity and how the Eddington observation proved that space-time curves. And then what they'll do is they'll jump from that to Earth, and they'll start talking about basically gravitational fields, and they'll conflate gravitational fields as though they are one and the same thing. And it causes confusion, and it's intentional obfuscation, in my view. This topic is identical to that. It's got the same tactic, because on the one hand, he's talking about wells and cyan and the sun being at zenith and lighting up the bottom of the well. But you can all check this yourself, and this is a genuine question, but isn't it sticks and shadows on the ground?
It doesn't matter. The principle's the same. Yes, depending on the source, you can get it as sticks and shadows, or you can get it as wells. It doesn't matter. The principle is angles. It doesn't matter which.
So is it their position that both were done, or is it their position that the shadow over the well?
Both. Depends on the source. Doesn't matter either way. But yes, you're right. There is an inconsistency that you can easily find where sometimes it's described with wells, sometimes it's described with sticks and shadows.
I just didn't realise that they did both. I thought there was an intentional obfuscation point so that they can cloud it and confuse the hell out of everyone.
I don't think they did either.
Pardon?
Historically, I don't think this happened, ever. I don't think this has been done. It might have been replicated, but do you think this actually happened? I don't.
No, and if there was a bloke that paced out the distance to the other town in Stada, and then they argue over what that distance was or whatever, depending on whether he's walking over a flat terrain or a curved terrain, he's going to get two different values, isn't he? Which is going to fundamentally change the maths. And that's another thing that they never talk about.
No. What's he going to walk for? To tell him what angle he got off a flat plane?
No, to get the distance for the between the two cities, innit?
Did they have mobile phones back then?
No, I think they did smoke signals or homing pigeons.
So 500 miles, how the hell, right, even if you give them measuring the distance, do you know when you're in town A, how do you know it's 12 o'clock in town B to measure the angle off a flat plane?
They were quite wealthy. They might have had a Rolex.
I reckon they had a sundial.
A Rolex.
What it was, they did it a year apart.
Oh, that sounds like a...
That's right.
No, go on then. No, go on, explain that then. Explain that. So a year later, how do they know what time it is in Alexandria?
Well, they knew time from the sun, did they not?
No. How do they know? It's translation. It's translation of local time. So whether it's the same year or a year later, how do they know the time in Cyan when it is 12 o'clock in Alexandria?
Because they'll both have a solar noon.
Yeah, but how do you know the difference between those solar noons?
Okay, we could focus on these 2015 to 2017 arguments, given that we've got an elevation angle measurement argument that proves Earth's flat and debunks their claim of a sphere they're about to assume when they bend the line they've just taken an angle from. We could focus on the smoke signals that are required to determine if they're doing it at the same time or whether or not they can establish that they're exactly 12 months ahead with the same exact timings at the time locally. But elevation angle measurements that they're actually using, the angles that they're taking are requiring a flat baseline. That's why we're starting out with this diagram on screen and I've left it here. It's a flat Earth that's being depicted. How are you going to get angles from a curved surface? You can't.
No, you can't, but just to fill in the point, I mean, it's a north to south situation. So, like when the sun is at solar noon in Cyan, then in Alexandria, it will also be solar noon, but it just won't be directly overhead. So all you have to do was find a place that was directly.
How do you know that? How do you confirm that?
Because it's on along the shoe lines are based on the position.
No, you're missing the point. What he's saying, if you're one guy in one place and one guy in the other, and this is however long ago, how do you establish that it is at the GP position above the well in Cyan? How do you establish that if you're not in Cyan, be it a year later or on the same day?
The way I read it is they know that one day a year, it always did that at the equinox. So they decided to go to Alexandria, wait on that same day when it was solar noon in Alexandria, it would have to be solar noon in Cyan. And that's how they say in the writing they did it.
Okay, glad we figured that out.
Yeah. And
No,
what
but
it was,
how you can't do that unless you know that they've got the same time already, that they're virtually on the same thing, right? And you've got the presuppositions of a ball and a map that place it on there to make that statement. This is why it's a made-up story, because it requires additional information that wasn't available at the time.
but I don't believe it was a made up story.
Coupled with the fact that the guy never really exists in the way it's described, the only real description of him is just a name link with a non-similar title. One's a librarian and one's this. There's very little there. The only thing is the kind of validation story. That's the only thing that's really out there, and one mention of it. It's just pushed from that. That's where it's grown from. I don't think that the guy has any merit in history.
I don't either.
I saw it as.
Okay, we can debate this later. It's not pertinent. Just a quick shout out to Sensual Goat. He says, I indeed share the show, although it unfortunately appears that many run away and hide when they hear the content disseminated on this show, as it destroys the straw man they have mentally developed. Thank you very much indeed for the sentiment and for the super chat, Sensual Goat. I really appreciate the support. On the subject of sharing the show, I tried this earlier and it didn't work, with exactly 100 people watching right now. Please share the show. If we do get to 120 people watching this show live today, I'll extend the show and we'll cover the majority of the video live. If we get to our mark and we're still hovering around 100, 110, then we won't. So please share the show now. Plenty of time to do so.
And we could have a curved Earth with a sun that's big and far away, so that all the light comes in parallel, but only one well at a time.
How are you going to get the angle? Notice he didn't mention the angle. All the light comes in parallel. Okay. How'd you get the angle?
Just hang on one sec. Eratosthenes definitely did exist, because didn't Eratosthenes come down Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments and tell the world how to behave? I'm sure that was Eratosthenes, and if he didn't exist, we wouldn't have the 10 Commandments.
No, that's Al-Biruni.
Oh, sorry, Al-Biruni. My apologies. Got that one mixed up.
Time is lit all the way to the bottom. Turns out with just 2 wells, there's enough wiggle room for both explanations to fit our observations.
Wrong. The one on the left can't acquire angles from. So what are you talking about? No, you can only do it with the flat Earth. You can only take the angles from a flat surface. This doesn't work on a sphere.
Eratosthenes only had 2 wells. But what if he had added a third?
Notice we're not showing how the angles are going to be taken. We detailed the angles when only a flat Earth was being shown. Now we seem to have veered away from those angles. Why would that be? Now we're adding a third well.
With a third well, it doesn't matter where the sun is. No flat Earth model can explain the angles of all 3 shadows.
Whoa, there he goes. No flat Earth model can explain the angles. It would be a prerequisite to measure them. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. No flat Earth, that's the baseline being flat and the angle up to the item in the sky. You wouldn't be able to acquire that from the curved surface in any of these events. Why have you got ticks next to all of these when you've just mentioned the angles? None of these give you angles. That's why you showed the angles on this diagram. Because it doesn't work on this one. So you explained the angles, showed the angles, but only on this diagram. Why would that be? It's because Earth must be flat to get the angles. Neil deGrasse Tyson just proved Earth's flat by demonstrating how the angles would be acquired from a flat plane and failing to show how the exact example would work on this curved surface that he put ticks on.
Shadows. But the spherical model explains it all. All 3 angles with ease.
Oh, here we go. All 3 angles? I'm afraid not. Go on, Brian.
Yeah, just something Dave Murphy pointed out a couple of years ago, is that in his diagram, he places, not that it really matters, but he places the third well that's on his globe at a point that doesn't meet in the center. So he cheated. To put in a third well, which is, I don't even think is even the proper Eratosthenes, to put in the third well demonstration, to put in the third well when on his model, his globe model, he had to, it's actually a chord through the globe. It's not reaching the center. They multi-pointed at Earth.
This is why he's using wells. So he is asserting that he can acquire angle because he's taken a vertical well and then taken the angle off the vertical line going to the center of the Earth and then the angle off that. I don't know if you can see on the live stream what I'm talking about. Science versus
He's using it to
pseudoscience.
generate zenith angles because if he was to take an elevation angle, the or the curvy nature of his diagram there would be accentuated in the angle and show its impossibility. That's why he's using wells, not sticks, and so he can use a zenith off the side of the well.
Right, but how does he establish vertical for each of the wells?
That's it, isn't it?
And isn't that well got diverging zeniths on one side and the other?
Nathan, everyone in the morning sees the sun rising, so to speak, and there's a shadow that's cast by it, say using a tree. Then when the sun is directly over the tree, it's at its zenith over the tree, and there's hardly a shadow because it's directly over. Then when the sun is setting or going or fading away, the shadow is on the opposite side of the tree. This is normal, and that could only work on a flat plane. What is this three well stuff? When he's got the sun in the center of the middle well, the shadows are going to be cast appropriately, just like the tree example.
But see, how he got the zeniths, if you want to know how he got the zeniths, it's very simple. He pre-assumed that all sun rays were parallel. He pre-assumed the sun was really, really big and all sun rays were parallel. And that's how we got the zeniths. He's taking the zenith. So every angle is an angle to a zenith. So he's, if you understand what I mean. Yeah, so if he's pre-assuming that, then you can pre-assume the angles on a globe.
Gotcha.
Explains it all three angles with ease. And to do this experiment, you got to measure the angles.
Not an experiment. There's no naturally occurring phenomena that's been observed, and there's no presupposed explanation for that phenomena being tested.
Greeks had the angles.
Yeah.
Okay, in fact, geometry translates to Earth measurement. So one.
Yeah, Earth measurement and elevation angle measurements require a flat baseline. So Earth measurement is flat Earth measurement.
This thing, which should be obvious, okay, if you pay attention and think about it. If you send a ship straight to the horizon.
What, are we going to assume that the horizon's now blocking this sun? So within one diagram, like last time when he's got to condense a load of begging the question assumptions, he shoves a diagram up. So now we're assuming that the horizon's a physical limitation to our view, a geometric sphere edge, like Earth measurement. When was this measured as a sphere edge? He's just said geometry, Earth measurement, and then put a boat on the horizon. So the horizon's assumed to be Earth curve in this example. When was that measured? And when you tell us, bear in mind that the black swan shows that Earth cannot have a sphere edge for a horizon. We've debunked that.
Right. Eventually, it begins to disappear until it's no longer visible beyond your horizon.
Beyond what Earth curve is a geometric limitation blocking the bottom first? Oh, absolutely not. Because if that was the case, then you couldn't have a limitation beyond 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as your geometry claims. And we've got evidence that shows it's considerably beyond those geometric limitations, therefore definitely not an Earth curve horizon. We've debunked that. So no, definitely not.
I think he did well to not say behind the horizon, though. I thought that was clever to use the word beyond.
Right. And you should ask yourself, what kind of surface would produce that result?
The ocean,
if it's
the ocean has a ramp.
What kind of surface would produce that result? We can show it doesn't produce that result. So you asking about this, alluding to it being science, and then not presuming a cause of the effect to vary and manipulate it to see if it caused it, and just deciding that a surface shape is going to cause it? Oh no, definitely not, because when you make that assumption, you ignore the fact that in your diagram, the boat got smaller. That's not in your maths. So in Neil deGrasse Tyson, in his boat example, this boat...
Beyond your horizon.
...got smaller. No, definitely not. That doesn't happen in your maths. The boat remains the same exact size at all distances. It'll be measured in feet and inches or meters and centimeters. And it'll be asserted in terms of how much is blocked at the bottom in feet or centimeters. Because that assertion does not change the size, as you've represented it in this diagram, with an angular representation, i.e. getting smaller by your perception. So the fact that it gets smaller into the distance would need to be factored in, and it isn't in Earth curve maths. The Earth curve maths with the horizon that we've debunked as being Earth curve, that Earth curve maths, the one that doesn't include perspective, the begging the question because it assumes R and assumes ferocity, proof of nothing because boats don't have this effect in the Black Swan, perspective hijacking because everything remains the exact same feet and inches size regardless of distance, Earth curve calculator. Yeah, we debunked this, every single aspect of it.
Right. And you should ask yourself.
His question, Nathan. Sorry, 1 second. His question is completely a fraudulent question, because what we see, as far as what the horizon is and what we see, has nothing to do with the surface. It's all optical. So the surface has nothing to do with it. If you know what I mean. Like the surface having a shape or not having a shape, what we see is an optical effect, not an effect of the surface.
Yes and no. In terms of just a mere description of the horizon, singular, then yeah. What is the horizon? Well, it's an optical phenomena. Can we describe it? Yeah. Do we need to make a claim? No. But we could. And we could definitely include, and would, because we'd have to, the effects of perspective. When we described it, something that's excluded from the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. Because they've called perspective Earth curve. So they don't have it in there. Now, while we could do that, we don't need to. We've debunked the R value, we've debunked Earth as having a horizon that's physical. So therefore, what's the point?
Kind of surface would produce that result.
The ocean,
if it's
the ocean has a ramp. It's like a parking lot. The ocean has a ramp.
And it's an elevator.
It's an elevator. You get to a certain point, and they're just like going down.
No, but you will be measuring it as a flat surface if you're navigating it. You talked about Columbus earlier. Again, he didn't mention any of his measurements in terms of his navigation ability, or how he did it on maps that were flat, or how the sphere Earth that you're asserting he travelled around was developed from the flat maps based on an equatorial plane. What you simultaneously describe as your outside edge of a sphere when you apply the Haversine formula to that equatorial plane in the celestial sphere model that's also a flat Earth. So no, we're not going to be assessing the ground when we already know we've measured it flat to develop all the maps and models. It's been measured flat and will be utilised flat. It has to be to get angles from it.
Seafarers knew this.
Right.
And so however flat they would have imagined the Earth to be.
They didn't. They measured it that way. They'd be measuring it that way when they're pointing their sextants at stars.
They couldn't have accepted it to be completely flat.
Well, they did, because they navigated huge swathes of it flat and mapped it as territory that was flat, drew circles on it that was flat, and found their positions with it being flat.
Otherwise, you would never not see the ship.
What? Never not see the ship? What, like we never not saw the oil rigs being blocked by a physical geometric sphere edge horizon that should have been in the way at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet if it was a physical Earth curve edge? No, it was way beyond them. It wasn't blocked by them at all, because it isn't a blockage. It's not a physical hill getting in the way. We've debunked it.
Okay. Also, if I just...
110 people watching. Might be an extended live show, guys. See if we can get a few more people to smash that share button.
Tell you, Chuck, walk due east. Okay?
Right.
And don't ever stop.
Right.
I just turn around my chair and face this way, and eventually you're going to come back.
Right. And you'll probably be about 150 years old.
Who cares? You do that on any circular map. If you've got...
Do it north, though, right? Well, if you turn south and wait, will that person arrive?
Exactly.
Where's the evidence that proves that it does?
You can show how this works on a flat map. And that is how it works on a flat map. And if you're navigating, the map will be flat. But what if you say, we take this back to the globe projection that the map came from? It's actually a sphere that you're going around. Okay. Navigate it north to south as Anthony's described. When's that ever happened? It'd be happening all the time if Earth was a sphere. It isn't. Otherwise that would be commonplace. You navigate it spherically in all directions, all the time. You don't have to set out these roadmaps in such a rigid way. But what, if you travel east like you could on a flat map, and it makes it a globe? Definitely not.
I've got an interesting tangent to segue for a minute. Just bear with me 60 seconds. My uncle is over from Tasmania. Tasmania is south of the southeast corner of Australia. It's pretty much Antarctica as far as the map's concerned. You couldn't really get any further away from England. He's over from Tasmania, and I asked him, like, how was your flight? And he flew on the new Boeing plane that is the competitor for the A380. I can't remember what it's called. And he was telling me how plush it was and all that. And I said, did you fly non-stop or did you do a transfer? He said, we stopped in Kuwait. I said, Kuwait? I said, you normally stop in Singapore, don't you? He said, yeah, we stopped in Kuwait for some reason this time, and I don't know why. He said, but that's the way that they've run in this route. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have a look into that. Anyway, I had a look into it, right? And Tasmania to London or to England, it's pretty much antipodal, right? You can go any direction from Tasmania and you can get to England in all directions because it's almost antipodal. So when you look at the route, they should be able to travel in any direction because of antipodality, but they don't. They're going through Kuwait, and it's like, I wonder why that is. Okay, it's more populated and there's commercial reasons for it, but it's also extremely convenient that they don't go any other way that's that way, right? They could do it one stop, one flight, and it's just interesting that they don't. Anyway, carry on.
I did come away. I thought you'd have more to add.
Oh, no. Because I am no Forrest Gump. That is how long it would take me to run the Earth.
For me, the fact that there's a rise of flat earthers.
Right. So based on QE's show yesterday, he's just used a stereotyping fallacy. So this will be followed by either a baseless assertion or what was the other one? I don't know, you were watching yesterday.
Straw man.
Or a straw man. So next, we're going to have a baseless assertion or a straw man. Let's see which one it is.
There's evidence of two things.
Okay.
One, we live in a country that protects free speech.
That's
non sequitur. You were wrong, QE. It was followed by a non sequitur.
Actually kind of awesome.
And two, we live in a country with a failed educational system.
Ooh.
Oh, there's a what would you call that?
A secondary ad-hom. He's not finished.
Poisoning the well. Sorry.
And a straw man. I mean, yeah, the education system is not exactly superb, but that has nothing to do with flat earthers.
No, but he's going to say that's why there are flat earthers, because the American education system has let them down. That's why we believe it's flat.
Sorry, Adam, I didn't mean to step on it at the end. No, he's actually telling the truth again. He tends to do that. There is a failed education system. Teaching everyone the world is a globe. That's a failure.
It's not just school, though. I mean, everything is trying to teach you it's a globe. Like all the mainstream media is, right?
It's insulting apologetics, yeah? It's not our fault as flat earthers we're that retarded. Yeah, the education system has let us down. We obviously don't grasp. We didn't learn the programming well enough.
I thought I took it in pretty damn well.
Yeah, me too. I think I know it pretty damn well. That's why I've become a flat earther.
Yeah, but not from this viewpoint. That's what I'm saying. From this viewpoint, you did so well. John was doing better than most from this viewpoint until suddenly reality dawned. He even fought for it for a bit, you know? He was trained that well.
115 people watching at what would be technically the end of the scheduled live show.
Ah, almost there.
I think that's 5 more than yesterday.
You know what? I reckon tomorrow we will have an extended live show. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980, oh, my camera's got skewed to the right slightly. Let's just sort that out. This is very professional. With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!